We're going to go over the basic steps of carpet cleaning utilizing this machine. As you had talked about, the very first step of carpet cleaning is dry soil removal. That's typically done with a vacuum cleaner, and it's very important to get as much of that soil out dry as possible. So a thorough vacuuming is really an important first step. If we don't do that, then all this water that we're going to end up putting in the carpet turns that dry soil into mud. Makes it that much harder to remove. Makes your job much more difficult. So having a good vacuum cleaner and thoroughly vacuuming using Granny Groomer, which is this type of a grooming tool. It's attached on here, and you rake the carpet. Now this level loop doesn't always give you a good response. The dirt tends to stay on top, but what happens in all your traffic areas, the nap lies down and traps the soil in there. So if we can take a grooming tool like this and bring the nap back up, that allows the vacuum cleaner to pull soil from deeper down inside the pile of the carpet. So the vacuuming is done in two steps. You use your grooming tool and rake it out and then vacuum. Now you're ready to start the next step of the cleaning process, which is applying pre-spray. All the pre-sprays, all carpet cleaning requires loosening up the soil and then removing the soil. So using a pre-spray, typically, and we're going to use Zone Perfect. This is a good all-around, highly concentrated pre-spray. It works on a number of different fibers very well. By using the Zone Perfect and then rinsing it out with the next product we'll talk about, gives you the least amount of worry as to what kind of carpet I'm dealing with, what conditions you have to deal with. It's a very good all-purpose effective cleaner. We're going to apply our pre-spray with a pump-up sprayer, electric sprayer, something of that nature. Mix it up according to the directions. It's better to use hot water if you have it available. So you mix it up and then spray it down. You're going to spray it down heavy in your high traffic areas and light around the edges. By doing it with a pump, by applying most of your cleaning chemical with the pump-up sprayer, you're adjusting the chemical to the conditions of the carpet. If we were to put our chemical in the machine, then you'd have to put in enough chemical to clean the dirtiest parts of the carpet, and in all those other areas you're using way too much chemical. So by putting down an aggressive cleaner with a pump-up sprayer, gives us the opportunity to pick those sections. So if you have a really dirty spot like here, you can hit it hard and maybe even use your foot to agitate a little bit if you need to. That's typically all that's needed. Now if you have really bad traffic areas, you're going to take your grooming tool. Again, you could probably do this while we're talking. Take your grooming tool and go over those high traffic areas. That gives you a little bit of extra agitation to break the soil loose. So step one is the dry soil removal with the vacuum cleaner. Step two is breaking the soil that remains in the carpet loose from the fibers. We use this to get you a little extra agitation. If there's some spots in this carpet, if we spray it down and if our foot doesn't quite give us enough agitation, we might want to work those areas a little bit harder with the Granny Groomer. The next step is the soil removal. That's what this machine's all about. So this machine has a container for the clean water rinse, and then it has a container for capturing the dirty water. So we're going to put our cleaning solution in this side, and it's going to come out of the wand. You notice the wand has two spray jets, here and here, playing to who, and a vacuum port here. So important to realize that the spray jets are behind the vacuum port. So as we're pulling the wand towards us, we want to squeeze the trigger. That allows the cleaning solution to hit the carpet, pass through the carpet, and then back up into the vacuum slot as we're coming backwards. As you finish your stroke backwards, you want to release this trigger and then come back that last 2 inches to get the last remaining line of water. And we go forward across the same area. So now we've gotten it wet once and vacuumed it twice. We go over 50% and do the same thing. Pull it towards us with the trigger on. As we near the end of our stroke, we release the trigger, come back, finish getting that wet spot, and then we're going to go forward over the same spot. So every spot really is going to get wet twice, vacuum 4 times. When we hit our traffic areas, we may need to increase that because that's where most of the soil is accumulated. So you're going to possibly, depending on how dirty it is, you may hold the trigger on and go back and forth 4, 5, or 6 times to try to get all the soil to release. Every extra time that you've made that pass, you're going to have to do some extra vacuum strokes to recover more of that water. It's really important to do it in a systematic approach. I like to do it going across a room, and I'll do this systematic pull stroke like this. You're pulling it, releasing the trigger, going forward. Go over 50%. Pull it, release it, go forward. Pull it, release it, go forward. And then over 50% each time, and we're going to go just across the room. Then when we're down, we've gotten all the way across, so you're just going to come down the next row and do the same technique. So you're going to zigzag back and forth across the room until you're done. And you want to start in the furthest back part of the house and slowly work your way to the front door. Depending on how dirty those areas are, some people like to do the front door area first. The very first thing you do is attack, because that's usually the dirtiest part of the carpet. You attack that first. Then you're going to go in the back, and as you come out, you can tell if that needs some more attention. A lot of times in the drying process, you realize that you didn't quite get enough soil out of there, but that gives you the maybe an hour it takes to do the rest of the apartment for that to start drying, and you can get a good idea what it's going to look like, and then you can just lightly go over it on your way out. So that might be in your guys, especially in the beginning, you attack those areas first, then you go in the back of the apartment and work your way out. The best way to prepare the machine, you have several chemicals that go into the machine. We talked about the traffic lane cleaner, which in this case is Zone Perfect, and it says ultra concentrated carpet pre-spray. That's your first chemical that hits the carpet. That's why it's called a pre-spray. After that, we're going to mix up N-Zone, which is an emulsifier, extraction emulsifier, and neutralizer. This product helps suspend the soil that we've loosened up using the pre-spray. It then helps suspend it long enough to get it into the machine. And it's a lower pH so that it leaves the carpet with a lower pH and helps neutralize any residues that may be in the carpet and gives you the cleanest, finest finish by neutralizing those things. If you want, you add a little 2 to 8 ounces. Now for extraction cleaning, you're going to add a half an ounce to 1 ounce per gallon of ready-to-use solution. So we typically mix up in 5-gallon pails. If you can get hot water out of the bathtub, you fill it up 5 gallons at a time. In each one of those 5 gallons, you're going to mix 2 to 4 ounces of N-Zone in your 5-gallon pail. You're then going to mix I'd say a half a cup's the easiest thing to remember, because that's going to give you not quite an ounce per gallon. So you can do, excuse me, half a cup of this in 5 gallons and a half a cup of this in 5 gallons. In your recovery tank, because these chemicals, when they enter the machine, there's a lot of airflow and it pulls it into the machine, it's going to churn up inside the recovery tank. Plus there's a good chance that there's other chemicals in the carpet from people spot cleaning and this and that. You have to use a defoamer to kill the foam as it enters the recovery tank. And the best way to use the foam when the vacuum hose is connected to the machine, prior to connecting it to the wand, you're going to put about a cup of the, a palmful of the defoamer, and then suck it out of there. That allows that defoamer to coat the inside of the whole hose and enter the waste tank. So as you start pulling foamy chemical out of the carpet, it starts to kill it right away. And every time you dump, you should put a little bit more defoamer in there. It's important to use the defoamer because if you allow foam to pass through the vacuum motors, it damages them. It also voids the warranty on the vacuum motors. So unfortunately, you think, well, these vacuum motors should, handle exposure to everything. They do to a certain degree, but the manufacturer of the vacuum motor says if you allow moisture to pass through them, we're not going to warranty it. The way the vacuum motors are installed in this unit, they stand up on end. So if moisture does enter them, it usually runs out and it usually passes out of there. In the long run, vacuum motors will eventually die. I mean, you should get a good 3 years out of a vacuum motor. If you don't use defoamer, you're lucky if you get 1 year out of a vacuum motor. Okay, we have guys that go even longer than that. It just depends on the situations you run into. There's some carpets, since you're doing your own in-house stuff, depending on who did it in the first place, you probably won't have a lot of soap in there. But there's some carpets that are shampooed on a regular basis. There's some carpets that people use Dawn dish detergent to get a spot out. And when you hit an area like that, there's tons of foam. So it's important to use the defoamer. The machine also has a ping pong ball in here that as the water level rises up, it'll bring the ping pong ball closer to the vacuum port, and eventually the vacuums will suck the ball up into there and it'll cut your vacuum off there. That way you know your tank's full. The foam, however, can creep around the ball and pass through the motors. So that's why it's important to use that. It's also important after every job to make sure this filter is clean. As this coats, especially if there's dog or cat hairs in an apartment, this will coat really quickly. And of course, if this is completely covered, you don't have any vacuum out there. If you seal it here, you're not going to get vacuum on your wand. So it's really important to make sure this is clean after every job. It's also important to rinse this tank out at the end of every day because it's full of nasty, smelly stuff. So if you rinse it out at the end of every day, then it doesn't start reeking. If you allow it to sit in there, there's enough bacteria and stuff that'll start munching on what's in there, and the machines really get a bad breath. This works by just a quarter turn. You have to get it lined up so that you have clearance inside of it. And you quarter turn and put that down. Okay. When we mix up our chemical, we want to always do it in a 5-gallon bucket. Don't mix it in here, because in here is a guess. If you start guessing, you'll eventually, you'll guess in my favor. You'll use more chemical because it makes your job go easier. But it also leaves more residue in the carpet, and residue in the carpet tends to attract soil and leaves the carpet not feeling the way it should feel, so you have unhappier clients. The last thing we're going to talk about is upholstery cleaning. You can use the same end zone rinsing agent for your upholstery cleaning. That's why I picked this particular one. It is slightly acidic, and which makes it safe in most cleaning situations. We do have to use a different pre-spray because different soils are on furniture than they are on carpet. This pre-spray, if it's really, really dirty, use it straight. If it's a normal soil, you dilute it 50-50 and apply it with a pump-up sprayer. The same principles apply. You should vacuum it off first. Excuse me. Vacuum it off first, pre-spray, and then rinse extract. And the same thing applies with your hand tool. You're going to pull it towards you with the trigger on. Make sure you vacuum going back up. So the same motion occurs on the furniture than it does on the carpet. Any questions?
I don't think so. Good, very good.
Now, okay, because the chemicals that we've talked about are pretty good chemicals, most of your stains should come out with the pre-spray. If there are some stains that are reluctant to come out with the pre-spray, normally you're going to use a water-based spotter first to attack those potential stains. Avenge is your best all-purpose spotter to use. In fact, if you're doing touch-ups, you may go in there and just use Avenge and a clean towel and take a spot out of the carpet. It leaves very little residue, it doesn't foam too much, and it removes most stains effectively. The other types of stains, like chewing gum and grease, like grease off of a car or something like that, spots that are that nature are much more difficult to remove and require a solvent-based cleaner, and this Citrusolve is the safest, easiest to use solvent-based cleaner. If you're going to use Citrusolve, you then have to follow it with a little bit more pre-spray to rinse it out because it leaves a slightly sticky residue, and this would be used in your cleaning process. If you know that it's gum, or if you know that it's lipstick, or if you know, then before you even get it wet, you might want to attack it with the Citrusolve. If you use Citrusolve, you have to be very careful. The Citrusolve will also dissolve the adhesives that hold the carpet together and dissolve the adhesives that hold the carpet to the floor. So you want to apply this sparingly. You put it, the best way to do it is you put it on a towel, then you put the towel onto the carpet. If you squirt it on there, then you're going to have, you might be successful getting the stain out, but you're also going to have lumps in the carpet and long-term problems. There's some areas in here, we had some motors upstairs that leaked oil, and they've dissolved the backing of the carpet. So there's, you know, I don't know where, I think there's one over there somewhere. We can show you the damage it causes. So you want to avoid doing that.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Super.